Hi and welcome. A couple days ago, I finished my sketchbook and wanted to share it with you from start to finish. This is a Stillman and Bryn sketchbook. It has taken me 10 months to fill. During the time working on this, I completed 2 challenges and spent some time getting to work with old and new mediums. Moving right into the first spread, I created this welcome page. I started the sketchbook in March of 2023, so I'm going to go ahead and add the end date, which is January 2024. While I wasn't too worried about decorating the outside of the book, I did feel like it was important to have a nice welcome page that made me feel excited and inspired whenever I opened it. So I explored a little bit of typography when creating this to kind of set the tone on trying to get out of my comfort zone, trying new techniques, new styles of art. The next page, as you can see, my daughter added her own art into it, so I wanted to work around it. My kids were on a Studio Ghibli kick, which is why I painted this bathhouse scene. Unfortunately, the ink from the line art smeared, but I love the bright colors from it, and I love the little paint swatches that I did above it. I also have a small black and gray study of a skull, and on the next page I did some monochrome-ish portraits. This spread was from a trip, and I love all of these peaceful moments that I caught, and here are some of the animals we saw. This is probably my overall favorite page in the entire sketchbook, especially these signs on the right side. Of course, there is more doodles for my daughter. I wanted to keep some of them in here just to have her scribbles next to mine. I had this idea to do a Star Wars Day spread on Star Wars Day, except I don't really like Star Wars and decided to take this on really late. But these little guys right here are so cute, and this is just gonna stay unfinished. Here is the start of my 100 Heads challenge. This challenge I think is supposed to be completed in 10 days, so you draw or paint 10 heads every day for 10 days, and it's supposed to help you get more comfortable with drawing or painting portraits. I chose to not work on it like that. I separated the pages that I was going to use for this challenge and came back to work on it throughout my time in this book. This was a great challenge to complete, and I think whether you decide to do it 10 days straight or spread it out kind of like I did, it's a really great way to help you practice portraits, especially in pen. You'll see that I used pen for a majority of these. These next ones are my absolute favorite out of the whole challenge. I love the composition of this page. I love the green color that I chose. I love the style that I did this in. Color in the background just makes it look like one cohesive piece. And I love these so much. I love the expressions. I love that they all just seem like they'd be hanging out. This guy up here was the most fun to draw. The heads that I had the best time drawing were probably the sculpture ones, like these. These were different types of mugs or jars that somebody had sculpted into faces. I tried to switch up the materials I used when I would come back and work on them. I used some alcohol markers, which seemed to be one of the 2 materials that bled through the pages for me, as you can see here. Not every portrait came out the way that I wanted them to be, so sometimes I'd go back and add more details or colors, but this one I just ended up redoing on a separate page and gluing it over the original one. I also really like how the rainbow colored pencil portraits came out, especially this little guy on the top. The colors just look so good together. These pages I broke out the gouache and watercolor. I tried to stick with the original creator's Pinterest board for the portraits, but I was having a really hard time sticking to the challenge just using those, which is probably the point of it, but I also know myself, and if I'm not excited or inspired by them, I probably won't like how they come out. and then I wouldn't want to share them. If you'd like to see a little bit more on this spread, I made a video about it and give some tips on how to improve your sketching. And finally, the last 15. I wasn't strict on planning and composition, so the last page turned out a little cramped. After completing this, this was a great way to get familiar with your style and practice different portraits that you usually wouldn't do. I definitely recommend taking this on if you get the chance. As I've mentioned in different videos, I'm hoping to get more experience with different mediums, and one of those is watercolor. So here I did a negative space exercise, and on the left I was playing around with a crayon trying to get different textures in the sharks. Another way of practicing with gouache was painting my dog, who unfortunately passed away this Christmas Eve. I would use him as my model for gouache and decided to give him a more permanent spot in my sketchbook. When I don't know what I want to work on, but I feel like I want to create something, I'll look at movie scenes and recreate them, or I'll go for animals. So on one page, I discovered my love for red pandas, and on the other, I painted scenes from Pirates of the Caribbean and Transformers. This little panda, I really want to figure out something to do with him, maybe making a sticker or a small print or something. These pages are ideas that I had to fill frames I have in my kitchen. I like the idea of animals and foods mixed together, so that's something that's going to be coming soon. This was the other material that I noticed bled through the pages. I used ink for a wash of color to start. I dropped it on the page, and it must have been that I let it sit for too long and it soaked through the pages. Now is the start of Inktober. Here is days 1 through 12. Inktober and the 100 Heads Challenge are what really took me the longest time to finish the sketchbook, so during the month of October I didn't work on anything else. I really only have a small amount of time I'm able to create anything since I have 3 kids, and unless I want to stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, during this month I worked on the day's drawing and I would start planning the next day's drawing. This was my first year completing Inktober. Over the last 3 years, I would start but never made it through the full prompt list. I think a lot of it had to do with not giving myself more guidelines and restrictions, so for 2023, I decided to keep a certain size and material. I didn't want to do full page illustrations because I tend to get stuck in details, and I wanted to keep these all relatively simple. The same goes for supplies. I think I just get overwhelmed with how many options I have. Inktober is a great challenge just like the 100 Heads, but instead of being comfortable with portraits, you get used to working with line art and different ways to use ink. These last few pages all have videos done on them, so feel free to go back and check them out if you'd like to see the process of creating these. Thank you for taking the time and watching, and here's to starting new.